Dear friends, welcome to this week's virtual drasha. This week we have the incredible privilege of Parshas Bereishis, and Baruch Hashem begin the cycle of Kriyas HaTorah anew. And every year we learn Bereishis, there's an excitement. Even though we know the stories, we know what goes right, we know what goes wrong. It's not like there's any new twists and turns or any new surprises. But there's this beautiful feeling of hischatshus, this beautiful feeling of renewal. Because although the Torah remains the same, the stories remain the same, the halachos remain the same, we change. And as we evolve in life, as we get older, as we mature, as we move forward and as we regress, we relate to Torah and all of its beautiful and holy details in different ways. So the Parsha opens up, the Torah opens up. Bereishis bara Elokim es hashamayim ve'es haaretz. In the beginning, Hashem created the heaven and the earth. Va'aretz haisa sohu va'bohu. And the earth was astonishingly empty. On a most basic level, Torah Kadosh is trying to tell us that nothing preceded Hashem. The Hashem was the first entity. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's primary identity is that of a creator. What was before Hashem? Nothing. What's after Hashem? Nothing. Ha'aretz haisa sohu va'bohu was astonishingly empty. Bereishis bara Elokim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the first entity in this universe, in this cosmos, to create something. And it's incredible to see, we relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in so many different ways, especially coming off of Yamim Noraim, Avinu, our father, Malkeinu, our king. But the truth is, the Torah really introduces us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as a creator. And that is so important because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not simply a historical creator either. He's a contemporary creator. Every day is a new creation. Every day is a new recreation. But I want to share with you an incredibly beautiful insight by the great tzaddik, Rabbi of Alexander. The Rabbi of Alexander says something so beautiful, and I'll quote to you. He says, Bereishis bara Elokim es hashamayim ve'es haaretz. What does this mean? Listen to the Rebbe's words. In Bereishis hayom, if at the beginning of every single day, nosen ha'adam el libo, a person begins to contemplate, she'elokim bara es hashamayim ve'es haaretz. If the way I begin every day, see, the Rabbi understands that Bereishis, we translate Bereishis as the beginning, like the beginning of time. The Rabbi says, no, the Torah is giving me a plan for how to live successfully day after day. Bereishis, if at the beginning of each and every day, I go ahead and I instill and reinstill within myself one core ideological pillar, which is bara Elokim es hashamayim ve'es haaretz. Ultimately, again, that Hashem created everything. That Hashem is the creator of all. If I instill within myself that yisod, that idea each and every day, then what? Harei hu chash kol hayom b'po'al mamish she'aretz hi sohu vavohu. Then a person will see that the aretz is empty. The aretz, the earth, is astonishingly empty. What does this mean? I think what the Rabbi Alexander is trying to highlight is like this. If a person goes ahead and begins each and every day, Bereishis, instilling within himself the notion that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the creator. And what does it mean that Hashem is the creator? It means that there's nothing that happens in our world, there's nothing that happens in our lives without HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That Rebbe Shalom is the great choreographer, the great quarterback of everything on a global level, universal level, and personal level. If a person instills within themselves that ideology, then va'aretz haisa sohu vavohu. Then the aretz, which the Rebbe really understands, refers to gashmios, refers to material things, are really unimportant. So at first glance, it may seem that what the Rebbe is saying is that each and every day a person should begin by assigning primacy to their spiritual pursuits. Bereishis, in the beginning of every single day, bara Elokim es hashamayim ve'es haaretz. Hashem is the creator of everything. Make HaKadosh Baruch Hu the primary aspect, the primary focus of your life. Va'aretz haisa zohu vavohu. And gashmios, material things, material wealth, acquisition of material things is important. But compared to spiritual pursuits, they're not as important. The earth is tovavo, is empty. It's nothing. The most important thing is an emphasis and a focus on one's religious identity, one's spiritual identity. Create that hierarchy. Bereishis, first thing in the day, bara Elokim es Hashem ve'es haaretz. Hashem. And then after Hashem, va'aretz haisa sohu. You'll recognize that although material wealth is necessary, and material wealth could be enjoyable, but sohu, it is on such a lower level than the cultivation of our spiritual identity. A beautiful insight, but I think that Rabbi could also be teaching us something additional. I think that Rabbi is teaching us that when you start each and every day, if you want to make it through the day, because dear friends, not a day goes by that something doesn't happen. I could bury my head in the sand and ignore all the different things that are happening all around me. But not a day goes by that, or at least it feels that not a day goes by without something jarring that occurs. And obviously, this is a raw feeling for many of us now with the Ptira, with the untimely passing of Rabbi Moshe Hauer, Zecher Tzaddik V'Kadosh Livracha, who in our community in Baltimore was just like part of the spiritual epicenter of our community. So on a national level, as executive vice president of the OU, the hashba that he had on all of Klal Yisrael, literally all of Klal Yisrael, I still think we don't fully understand the enormity of it. There are overwhelming things that happen every day. And again, before this latest tragedy for Klal Yisrael, we were such simcha welcoming the hostages home. And Baruch Hashem, but yet there's still tsar that we can't yet even fully bury our dead. And as the details of captivity come out, it'll be more heartbreaking. And it's hard. It's hard. Sometimes it's almost like we have this feeling of, I just want to shut it off. I want to shut off the feelings. I want to shut off the emotions. It feels so difficult to be in constant pain. And obviously the last 2 years have been very painful. And it's not all pain. It would be wrong to say that. There's so much simcha, there's so much good, there's so much beauty. But there is a lot of pain. There's a lot of it. And it feels so profoundly acute. And it feels so profoundly overwhelming. So how do I make it through? How do I navigate this? How do we navigate through this? And I think what the Rabbi of Alexander is teaching us is there's a very simple formula. Bereishis, at the beginning of every single day, remind yourself of one thing. Bara Elokim es hashamayim v'es haaretz. There is a Ribono Shel Olam who runs the world. And that Ribono Shel Olam loves us. And he cares for us. Like Chazal say, the most beautiful metaphor, more than the mother wants to nurse her young, right? If the mother doesn't nurse her baby, it becomes painful for her. More than the mother wants to express the milk to feed her young, or I should say differently, more than the baby wants to nurse to receive nourishment, the mother wants to express her milk. Because if she doesn't, it's painful for her. She has so much to give. So the baby, of course, wants to eat, but even more than the baby wants to eat, the mother wants to give. That's the Ribono Shel Olam. He wants to give us so much. He loves us more than we could ever imagine, more than we could ever fathom. Every parent, every person who is zocheh to be a parent knows. What wouldn't you do for your child? What wouldn't you give for your child? Any person who in a loving marriage knows. What wouldn't you give to your husband? What wouldn't you give to your wife? Anything. Anything. And the greatest love you could conjure up in the world, the Baruch Hu loves us even more. I think Rabbi Alexander is telling us that if you want to make it through the complexities of life, and you want to make it through the difficulties of life, Bereishis, at the beginning of every single day, Bara Elokim es hashamayim v'es haaretz. Remember that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created everything, He choreographs everything, He organizes everything, and does so with a profound sense of love greater than anything we could ever comprehend or imagine. And if you have that, then even va'aretz haisa sohu vavohu, even when it's dark, even when life is dark, because sometimes, dear friends, life is dark. And sometimes it's overwhelming, and sometimes it's difficult, and sometimes it's profoundly tragic. It happens. Sometimes the aretz, the earth in which we live, the lives which we lead, the circumstances of our existence are so astonishingly dark and empty. And I could lose myself in the pain, and I could lose myself in the difficulty, and I could lose myself in the sadness, and I could develop chas v'shalom, a sense of yeyosh, a sense of despair, and throw my hands up and say, "Well, Shalom, I give up. How much could one heart take? How much could one person take? How much could one people take?" And the Rabbi Alexander says, steady yourself. Bereishis, first thing is first. Bara Elokim es hashamayim be'es haaretz. First thing is first. There's a Ribono Shel Olam who loves, who guides, who cares, who embraces, who holds, who soothes, who repairs, and who at some point in time will dry all our tears. And if you have that mindset and you start life with that mindset, no matter how astonishingly empty the aretz becomes, I can handle it. I'll get through it. Not only will I get through it, but I'll grow from the adversity. I'll grow from the difficulty. Chazal tell us that tzaddikim, gadol tzaddikim b'misas and yoser b'chayehem. Tzaddikim, the righteous, are even greater in their death than they are during their lifetime. And Rav Yitzchak HaKohen Kook says something so beautiful. He says, when a tzaddik is alive, so you see what you see. But most tzaddikim, most righteous people are humble and don't really broadcast their deeds. But when they die, says Rav Kook, then everything comes out. That's when the real kapara comes, when the world sees, after the tzaddik leaves this world, and the world sees what the tzaddik really did, that's when we begin to say to ourselves, wow, I need to be like that. I need to do that. I learned all about the tzaddik, and now I realize what it is that I have to do. And I think, although as I mentioned before, we are reeling from this tremendous loss for us, not just in Baltimore, but beyond. Dare I say, it feels a little bit like Va'aretz haisa sohu vavo. Klal Yisrael has lost an incredible shepherd. Klal Yisrael has lost a tremendous leader. And when the flock feels like who's guiding, who's doing, the world feels dark. But tzaddikim have the ability to mechaper even more in their death. Rabbi Howard Zichron Lebracha taught us that it is not really what you say, but it's how you do or what you do. And you could speak in a soft undertone and a whisper, because people don't really pay all that much attention to what you say, but they pay all the attention in the world to what you do. You can have the softest voice, but yet your actions could reverberate across the globe. Howard taught us what it meant to live a life of selfless dedication to Klal Yisrael, selfless dedication to family, and they need not be mutually exclusive. That's godless. That's godless. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is whispering us, don't lose yourself in the grief. Don't lose yourself in the sadness. Don't lose yourself in the yeush. Right now, va'aretz haisa sohu vavo. But, Bereishis, first thing is first. Bara Elokim es Hashem es haaretz. The same Ribono Shel Olam who gave Rabbi Howard Zichron Lebracha all of the kochos he needed to probably be one of the most influential leaders of our generation is the same Ribono Shel Olam who gives us the kochos to pick up the pieces, to steady ourselves, to learn from this great neshama, and to figure out how to be better, how to be more, and over time, how to become whole once again. A message for today and a message for all time. There is no shortage of days that feel like ha'aretz haisa sahu vavohu, that everything is so overwhelming. But that is where our emunah, that is where our bitachon, that is where our bereishis, first thing is first. We have HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and He has us. And as long as that's true, which it will be for all eternity, then whatever comes our way in Mirat Hashem will be successful. And over time, we will even begin to restore the light to a landscape that sometimes feels so very dark. Wish everyone a good Erev Shabbos, a beautiful Shabbos Kodesh, and may we be Zocheh Mirat Hashem to share Besoros Tovos for all of Klal Yisrael.